Chapter 17. Breakfast. Lauren grinned at her brother across the breakfast table. "You look so rough." I feel it," James moaned, as he limply stirred the Weetabix floating in his soy milk. "What time did you get home?" "About 2:45. "How much did you have to drink?" "It was mostly halves. 3 or 4 pints altogether, I suppose, and we were slugging back bourbon in the car." Kyle staggered through the door in his boxers. His hair was sticking up everywhere, and he had dried blood on his earlobe. "I don't remember that happening," James said. "Me neither," Kyle said. "There's blood all over my pillow. I must have caught my earring on something and been too smashed to notice." "Some night," James grinned, struggling not to gag as he swallowed a mouthful of cereal. "I saw you getting off with Tom in the bar," Lauren said. "Is it just for the mission, or do you really fancy him?" Kyle smiled. "What do you think?" "He's bloody good looking," Lauren giggled. "Everyone says it's about time you had a boyfriend." "Who's everyone?" Kyle asked, as he poured a huge heap of instant coffee powder into a mug, hoping the caffeine would give his brain the kickstart it desperately needed. Lauren didn't want to name names. "You know, Kyle, just campus gossip." Well, Zara said cheerfully as she stepped into the kitchen. "This isn't a pretty sight. You boys had better get your uniforms on sharpish if you expect to catch the bus." She wore heels and a smart brown business suit. James had never seen her with her hair up before. "You look nice," Lauren said, before breaking into an open-mouthed yawn. "Yeah," James nodded. "What are you all done up like a dog's dinner for?" Lauren gave him a kick under the table. "Don't be rude," she mouthed silently. "I've got to attend a senior staff meeting back at campus," Zara explained, as she caught her reflection in the window and pushed her hair into shape. "What about Ryan?" Kyle asked. "He's sulking up in bed. I had to give him a piece of my mind last night. He was talking about quitting the Alliance. I want you 3 to be extra nice to him for the next couple of days. He needs a boost." "I feel sorry for him," Lauren said. "Coming out of prison and finding that everyone stabbed him in the back." "You've had a few close chats with Ryan, haven't you?" Zara smiled. "He's not a bad guy," Lauren said. "The world's full of people who are all talk. Ryan might be a bit odd, but he's devoted his whole life to doing what he thinks is right. You've got to admire him for that." "Pity it's all a bunch of veggie crap," James sneered. "It's not crap, James," Lauren said bitterly. "Maybe if you'd done the background reading you were supposed to do for this mission, instead of playing your PlayStation and lusting after anything in a skirt, you'd understand how cruel people are to animals." "I understand the issues," James smirked. "Animals are dumb and they taste delicious." "Grow up, James," Lauren said, springing out of her chair. "Millions of animals suffer in factory farms and experiments every single day, and idiots like you don't even care." Okay, Zara interrupted. "Calm down, you two. James and Kyle, you've got less than 10 minutes to get ready for school." "Actually," Kyle said, "I was wondering if me and James could stay home today. We've only had 4 hours sleep." "I'm really tired as well," Lauren added. "She can go to school," James tutted. "She's not hungover, and she's always sitting up half the night nattering to Bethany when she's on campus. Get stuffed, James." Zara glanced anxiously at her watch. "I've got an important meeting," she repeated, "and I don't want to spend my day worrying about you 3 hanging around the house fighting. You're going to school, okay?" "Hey," Kyle said indignantly. James and Lauren are arguing, not me. All three of you, Zara said. Now I'm running late. I'll be back this evening, and if I find out that any of you didn't make it to school, there's going to be trouble. Zara steamed out towards the car, then came running back and grabbed her handbag off the countertop. You're both idiots, Kyle said, as he headed out of the room to get dressed. We probably would have got out of school if you two had stopped picking at each other for 5 minutes. James's morning was a nightmare. If you're feeling queasy and you want peace and quiet, Year 9 double art class isn't the place to be. Kids yelled across the classroom, the teacher yelled at the kids for trashing the still life, and there was a game of throw an eraser at another kid's head as hard as you can going on. The English period before lunch was quieter, but James was horrified when he looked at his timetable and discovered that the whole afternoon was games. He'd forgotten his kit, which meant he'd either have to run around in unhygienic rags handed out by the PE teachers, or try and get off by saying he was ill. James hadn't encountered the PE teachers at this school, but based upon past experience, the only way of persuading PE teachers into letting you out of games was if you had a note, or some obvious problem like a missing limb or a pickaxe handle sticking out the back of your head. James decided that his only option was to bunk off. As soon as the bell went for lunch, he headed out the main gate towards the small parade of shops with hundreds of other kids and just kept on going. James didn't know the area well, but the school bus passed through a village with a decent-sized shopping street a couple of kilometres from the school, and that's where he headed. It was a narrow road without a pavement. The traffic was light, but it didn't hang around, and you had to keep your wits about you when you walked around a bend. The sun was out, and the combo of country air and brisk walking cleared James's head. He'd only managed a few mouthfuls of cereal at breakfast, and by the time he arrived at the shops, he'd started to feel properly hungry. James's first thought was to wonder where he could buy vegan food, but as he passed a travel agent's and a baker's with gingerbread men and massive cream cakes stacked in the window, he realised that nobody was around and that he could eat whatever he liked. He felt inside his blazer pockets and was relieved to discover a $5 and a couple of quid in change. Even better, he spotted a burger bar across the road. It was old school, with laminated menus standing on the formica tables and ketchup dispensers shaped like giant tomatoes. It was busy but not packed, and the waitress told James to sit wherever he liked. 10 minutes later, she slid a Coke and an oval plate in front of him. It was stacked up with fries and a massive dual patty cheeseburger filled with cooked mushrooms and grated onion. James was still dehydrated from the booze the night before, and downed half of his Coke before grabbing the burger and tearing out an enormous bite. It was easily the tastiest thing he'd eaten in days, and he loved the hot trickle of fat running out of the meat and the sharp, crunchy onions. But as he moved in to take the second bite, he looked at the 2 slices of ground-up beef and started to wonder. He remembered reading that hamburger is made from the tough old meat that comes from dairy cows once they get too old to produce milk. Milk machines, one book called them, kept crammed in tiny metal stalls for most of their lives, pumped with hormones and antibiotics, constantly impregnated to keep the milk flowing. As James looked at his melting cheese, he remembered a picture in a book of a cow with an infected udder, and stories of how the bacteria-filled pus leaks into the milk. "How's your food, young man?" the waitress asked. Good," James nodded, finally taking his second bite. It was as good as any burger James had ever eaten. But the background reading for the mission and the talk amongst the activists made it hard to separate the images of cruelty from the food he was putting in his mouth. James had no intention of going vegetarian, but as he tucked into his lunch, he had the uncomfortable realization that his conscience was going to nag him every time he ate a piece of meat from now on.